So that's right folks, it is time for some more Cyberpunk 2077, and if CD Projekt Red will not do an updated roadmap for us, it is time for the fans to do one for them. Especially since, yeah, we have this really interesting article over from Forbes that raises a very important point, which is the fact that, well, if CDPR did not release any meaningful content updates until this point, wouldn't it make more sense for them to bundle that up with the free next gen upgrade that is still on the menu, and it should be released still this year? We will talk about that in this video, as well as a bunch of other stuff that has been uncovered in the game files, including references towards a very important lore character that for some reason was mentioned quite heavily in the game but never actually featured as a character you can interact or converse with. So we're gonna talk about that, starting of course with this Forbes article: time to make Cyberpunk 2077 a coherent roadmap if CDPR won't. Which, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The last time we get an updated roadmap, I believe, was over in February, when we got this slight update to the already existing roadmap, but since then, yeah, it's been pretty much all in the dark and we don't really have any idea what CDPR is planning on next. We still have free DLCs and the free next gen console update left on the table for 2021, so it's only a matter of time until we get to finally see these. But yeah, I mean, even the author is giving up right here. I have never seen a game with a fan base more desperate for any morsel of news and the company absolutely refusing to give them anything. That's the state of Cyberpunk 2077 right now, which does indeed have a hyper engaged fan base who have withered all of the storms so far and are desperate for any real news about the future of the game outside of the bugs and fixes and performance improvements, which is all we've seen for 8 months up until this point. And that pretty much perfectly sums up the current situation with Cyberpunk 2077, honestly. Like, people are so desperate for some news and for some updates that they're willing to pretty much, you know, just go on the forums and like just come up with pretty much anything. We've seen that with the recent, let's just not say like reveals from the lead quest designer, because it wasn't reveals, but like people right now are hanging from every single word that comes out of anybody that is currently working for Cyberpunk 2077. So yeah, that's pretty much the situation right now. But Cyberpunk 2077's roadmaps have been some of the most hilariously vague I've ever seen in the industry, and even then it still somehow feels like they're missing their own nebulous promises. Granted, we still have the fall to come, but I'm tired of waiting and I'm just going to do this myself. So he actually goes in and explains why he believes that this makes a lot more sense and how we could actually get to see these updates unfolding once CDPR is getting ready with that announcement. So this is his roadmap, of course, pulling a September 17 release 2021 right here, free DLC as well as the next gen launch. So at this point, players have been waiting so long for the free DLCs that the correct move is probably to just roll it up into the next gen launch when the game has official PS5 and Xbox Series X versions. And he actually raises a very good point for why he is saying this. I would actually be somewhat annoyed if I played a bunch of free DLCs on my Series X running the One X version, and then to have the Series X version come out shortly after that. And it would probably be the same for the PlayStation 5 as well. Like, we're just playing the PS4 version at this point with some improvements and better FPS, but I would definitely be pissed if I had to like just replay content again and not actually benefit from the next gen upgrades as well alongside these. So totally let me know down below what is your opinion on this. I would definitely much more likely want to see this rather than having them released in batches like how they wanted to initially. But nonetheless, here is how it actually goes. I would also not like to do what The Witcher 3 did with a rolling release for the DLC. So it was doing that right after launch, not 9 months later. So drop all of the free DLCs at once so players players can sift through all of the new cosmetics, weapons, gears, and missions at the same time, they check out the improvements on the next gen as well, which, yeah, honestly, I would really love to see that, especially some of these things right here, like new cosmetics with improved graphics. I would definitely like that. This can be used as a soft relaunch, he explains, of the game, as sort of, look, it's good now, plus there's some new stuff, even if the stuff is relatively minor. Of course, the only question now is CD Projekt Red actually going to implement these DLCs in a big bundle, or are they going to go as planned and release them one after the other? At this point, I think that I will totally agree with the article right here that it makes more sense for them to bundle everything together. It doesn't all have to go the Witcher 3 route just because they did that back then. Obviously, the situation right now is way different and they are way off schedule with these releases, if I were to be perfectly honest, despite the roadmap still having like yeah, about 4 months in this year. January 14, on the other hand, would be expansion number 1, so this would be on 2022 and onwards. As I've said already, we are way behind the Witcher 3's DLC schedule. Hearts of Stone was already out for a while by now in the lifespan of the game, so I don't think I'm asking too much for Cyberpunk 2077 first DLC to come out over a year after launch. And I mean, yes, it's probably going to follow this route anyway, because CDPR already did not include any meaningful DLC in 2021, and everything from that point on would happen in 2022. So I think that even if you were to place a bet right now, it would probably go in a similar route to that. May 20, which is a really yeah, really high hopes kind of date right here, would be the date for expansion number 2. This may be pushing the timeline, as even the author himself admits, but around a year and a half after launch, I'd like to see the second DLC out, hopefully an even larger one than the first, he explains, similar to the scale of Blood and Wine versus Hearts of Stone. To me, these expansions need to be this big so CDPR can reclaim some of its wow, this is a company that makes DLCs bigger than most games type of prestige that they've lost with the Cyberpunk launch. And I totally agree on that. They definitely need to make it right this time around. They definitely need to pull up a big update, a good relaunch of the game, and bundle everything together so that they don't make a mockery of themselves no more. If they continue to just release like performance upgrades and bug fixes, which they, by the way, still should in between these bigger updates, they're just going to lose even more fans than they already did, even though the fans that are still remaining are quite significant for a game that was supposed to die a long while ago. But speaking of dead characters, well, not really dead, there was an important one for the overall lore that was even mentioned numerous times in the game but never actually made it in any of its missions or encounters, and of course I'm talking about the legendary solo Morgan Blackhand that even Jackie himself mentions at the beginning of the game. He actually mentions them alongside characters like Adam Smasher, Rogue, Johnny Silverhand, and a few other, you know, characters that eventually we do get to interact with, but not with Morgan himself. Well, apparently he was supposed to be a part of the mission called Love Like Fire, which is essentially the flashback mission where you have to go in and raid the Arasaka HQ and place the bomb as Johnny Silverhand himself. It's one of the first missions that you do as Johnny Silverhand, but there's been some discoveries that have been made, and while the most intriguing is the fact that the way the quest in the game is unfolding is quite different compared to how it unfolds in the Cyberpunk Red tabletop RPG, and especially so in the events described as the Fall of the Towers. This article, well, this post over here on Reddit explains, and there's a few differences mostly pertaining to the lack of a Morgan Blackhand. So here's some of the clues that we have. First of all, there's been a data mined, and yeah, this model for that early version of Blackhand have been discovered, and here is how he would actually look like in game. Of course, it seems to be a placeholder kind of character. It would have probably been yeah, way different if CDPR went with this route of actually going with that version of the story, but since it was scrapped, this is likely just a placeholder. Even though it does seem to wear the Arasaka armor, it's just a regular old character that you probably can encounter as a random pedestrian, but its actual in-game file name is mentioning both this quest as well as the name Blackhand. So the name of this model / appearance holds the clues. It is labeled Q101_Blackhand. This is huge for quite a few reasons. First of all, because Q101 happens to be the internal name for the Love Like Fire quest, and it means that the model by the name of Blackhand is indeed intended for this quest. And digging in the game files and the game's code, you will find these results right here. So the name Blackhand appearing multiple times, but with the handle, or well, in this case with the entry, obsolete multiple times. There's multiple of these: secondary variant, female variant, and male variant, both indicated with the obsolete entry. Now these entries are explained to be meant for the name / label you see visible on top of NPCs, and it is proof that Morgan Blackhand was indeed a part of quest 101 in some iteration of the Love Like Fire quest. The obsolete is the indication that this value is outdated and not necessarily needed for the game, which is obvious since Blackhand is no longer a part of the quest. But it's interesting to see these kinds of discoveries. Obviously CDPR has intended way different things, maybe with the story at the beginning, but then eventually changed them around depending on, you know, maybe time constraints, maybe development constraints, or maybe because they just wanted to diverge a little bit from the overall Cyberpunk lore and kind of bring their own spin on them, though I could not see how they could bring their own spin on stuff by removing characters from them. So yeah, maybe we will see this character being set up as some kind of a DLC, or maybe in some of its expansions. It would be lovely to see more important lore characters making an actual appearance in the game. This is it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.